So we start with our dry lunar blender and we put a coat of neutral gray on there. I'm going to pick up a little cobblestone just on the corner of the brush, and I'm going to scratch in a wood grainy effect.
In the water.
Wipe my brush out. I'm going to pick up a little bit of black brown, and I'll kind of apply it along the top and then just lightly scratch it down. We're not wanting to press too hard. If you press too hard, you basically what we call overblend. So I can apply it along here and chisel it up. We will be shading to strengthen these afterwards, these areas. But you see how that creates a shadow already, right? And if you want to add any light in that area, now you're referring to your photos all the time. So if you want it to get any lighter in there, you can pick up a little bit of the sand and just lightly scratch in a couple of lighter ones. Now, in reality, the lightest areas would be these guys out in the front. So I'm not too concerned about having too much light in the background. So we're going to continue. We're going to do this little one that is a continual of that. Then we will do these two on top of it. You'll do this gray one back here, and this one here, don't worry about getting on the bird, and this right here. You most likely have your post already base coated all the way through. Anyway, so we're going to chisel this one, and down here is the same. And again, this guy coming from the side. All the neutral gray ones, we will do this same way right now.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, I have to do.
So anybody have great plans for Valentine's Day?
I have a workshop. So I'll be with my friends.
Well, that's nice. You'll have a galentine.
Yeah. Yeah, we got nothing planned either. A day like every other day, I guess.
I guess
Coming weekend, eh?
Yeah.
Family day, yeah. We might have the kids on Sunday over for chili and stuff like that. We'll see. We'll see. We kind of plan at the last minute. See if they plan anything first. And if not, well, we kick in.
Wow.
Chris has an event for Family Day.
What does he do?
Chris is there across from Muddy's. They invite all their family and employees and their families and neighbors and their families, and they have a caterer coming in with like a food truck, Chris, kind of thing.
Well, we're getting catered from a guy in Nazilda. Something new this time. We're trying something new.
So they've usually had like burgers and...
No burgers. Chili,
Oh, okay.
chili dog, wings, stuff like that. Easy finger food.
Oh, yeah, that's a good time to do that.
Yeah.
And then they have her husband, they own M&G Fencing. So he has built a great big hill, pushed all kinds of snow up there to make it
Sliding.
accessible for sliding. So then all the kids can slide, and then they have snowmobiles and all the...
Tractor and pulling
Nice.
fire and the whole shebang.
And they usually end up with about 200. Well, they think this year it's going to be about 200.
No, about 150, 125.
Oh, I thought your daughter thought 200.
No, 150, 125.
That's still pretty massive.
I was just thinking, once it's past
People,
100,
yeah.
it's all the same.
Yeah, once you pass 100, it's
And with the food truck, everybody pays for their own, I suppose.
no.
No, you pay?
Yeah,
Wow.
we pay. The only thing they have to do,
Yeah.
if you want to drink, bring your own booze. If
Right.
something happens, we're not responsible.
Okay.
And you're stupid.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I did something wrong here.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong. Well, if I do, I won't tell you. I'm not telling anyone.
Maybe I missed putting a line in here.
Well, it's going to get shaded.
No, I'll show you what I mean when I'm looking at it.
Oh, excuse me.
I've got crooked boards.
It's an
It was
old,
made with scraps.
it's weathered.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
It was
mine's
made
crooked.
with scraps.
I thought you had it all.
I didn't, so I videoed all that. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do here is we wet coat in cobblestone. So you're always wet coating in your base coat. I'm just going to come right through here. This pillar is going to come up afterwards a little bit. But it's like I said before, if you get in the edge of something, it doesn't matter.
And it's a bigger brush.
Nope, it's still the 3/8. And then this down in here is that same piece. Now I'm a little bit up on the top there. So I'm going to pick up neutral gray and chisel neutral gray. And I'm going to chisel it around where that post is going to be coming. And neutral gray would come from there. Wipe my brush, I'll pick up my sand. Sand is my little bit of light. Now everything is getting shaded later with the black brown. So you're going to have this strengthened. So you're not concerned that neutral gray is not as dark as that. It's just darker than what you're using right now. Okay, so it's the dark out of them. Pardon me. And that's how we clean up the edge on the top of those pieces. So we just scratch our highlight in the middle of this. And that's good. So that's my highlight put in, that's my dark put in, and then I would end up doing these ones that come down. This is the top facer board on our piece. So we're going to end up with, I had a pencil in my hand. Did anybody see my red pencil? Oh. See that? Like that's going to go at that angle. You'll see that in your colored picture. So when you're doing this top board, you'll go this way, and this one will go this way. All right? So even though there's no line there right now, you do see it in your picture for that you're guiding to chisel along with. And then I have noticed and noted that we are going to put a little black brown chiseled from here and here. These areas here. So if you're going to town and you're doing all that, you're going to put a little black brown in those ones. You can see them in your diagram.
So, cobblestone, you don't use the...
You just use a neutral gray and a little sand gray. That's your lightest one.
But you...
We're going to be following the second diagram. This is our shading. So you can see all the places that it's shaded darker. Now, I did transfer my bird on here, but that doesn't matter if you have your bird transferred on or not. Once you put your bird on, you'll shade on either side of it. It's no big deal. So, like I say, the big main areas that we're going to be shading, and always put out some fresh paint now. So we're going to be using our black-brown mix. We're going to be shading with that. I've got a mess here. Thank you. Ugh, look what I just did.
Oh yeah, saliva.
Spit's the best remover.
It's good for blending.
Yeah.
So we're going to side load. I'm going to shade, pick up, side load, blend, blend, blend. The big key is blending enough. Now, if you look at your picture, the best thing to do is to detail where the edge of that board comes. You know, you see that?
Oh, wow.
And then there's shading here. And you can do one area at a time, or you can say, well, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to define where that is. Now, I wanted to shade in behind the bird as well, but you can't do that while that's wet, right? So we always allow places to dry before you go back in. There's no point going and drying and doing all that. We have a million places here that we need to shade. So we will shade nice and dark. And I'm not pressing hard. That's the big key. Don't press hard. You press hard when you blend on your palette. You don't press hard when you blend, when you're doing your float. Nice and soft. It's a side load float. So you think of that as a feather floating or something. It's very nice and soft. If you shade along underneath where the snow is going to hang down, you'll only end up seeing a very tiny bit of it, but at least it will cast a bit of a shadow there. We're going to shade here, which strengthens up that dark section up top. And I'll do the same thing on that side. I'll just let that dry a bit. You get to know your brush on whether you still have moisture in it or not. Sometimes you still have lots of moisture and you can just go ahead and reshade, reload without wetting it even. So I nice and soft walk that out. Do you see how that creates all these different depth? And I'm not concerned if I get any where my bird's going to be. Flip my brush over, paint towards the bird, walk my way out. I can put a shadow up under that snow. And like I say, once we stipple the snow down on this, it's going to be nice and soft, and you're not really going to notice that dark shadow very much. So I've got some more shadows to put here. You're going to follow your diagram. You can see, like, you see how nice and strong the shadow is right here. That is going to define that piece. And again, some people, like a 1/2 inch is not too big of a brush, but some people feel that it is. Do you see how that defines the top of that? I can even take my chisel of my brush when I'm doing a side load float. See how I can drag down to make a few more wood grainy lines? So you can do that anytime you're shading, just because we're on wood grain and we want it to look wood grainy. Do you see how that really adds to it? So you don't have to be, you know, which is an after the fact, but like when we're saying, oh, that's okay, you don't have to worry so much about, don't stress about that. You see the different things we can do to create what you were trying to get and you just felt you didn't get enough of it. So I can do that here too if I want. I can chisel. So shade away, Jose.
And we can use the staining medium
And yes.
instead of water.
So when we use our Deerfoot, we use our 1/2 inch to put the snow on, and it's always dry. I'm going to load the heel, which is the short end, with the dark color, light, it's gray sky, and warm white will be on the toe. So we push to load, pull, so that I'm able to get the two colors. If I loaded this one and this one like that, the white ends up covering all the gray. Tap back and forth on your palette. So now we're going to come in here and I'm going to keep, do you know how there was like a little crease in our drawing along there? Right along here there was a line.
Yes.
And then I think it was down here again. So these are just kind of like the next layer would come from there. So we stipple the white, and you see that it ends up getting a little bit fuzzy off the edge. That's what we like. We like the look of nice, freshly, fluffy snow. Unless it's in our driveway, then we don't like the look of that fluffy, fresh snow. And you can cover your lines at that point if you have any lines that you didn't meet with your base coating. Always try to get there with your base coating. So I'm going to put a bit more white, come back with it. I don't want it so gray. And when I'm going back and I'm just picking up more white on the toe and I'm coming back with white and I'm bringing it back in, I don't have to bring it everywhere. Like, see, I don't have to follow that complete line. I'm just tapping in a bit more white. And then we start again. I got the brush still with lots of paint in it. And there's another line that we have where it folds and goes over the front of the house. So we'll have a little bit of a shadow there. We will be smudging a bit of a shadow later on here. So you will see what I mean in another step. So if you feel like, oh, I'm not getting that look of that line there, don't panic about it. We are going to add a bit more. And when you go to do the snow down here, you're going to switch to your 1/4 inch Deerfoot, of course. But the bigger and fluffier we can get this, if you don't have a 1/2 inch, you could go with a 3/8. And remember, I turn the brush around because I want white, little bits of white fluffy over the edge. And I work until I don't see this. So if I did this and I still see that line there, do you see? You know you're going to tap but your way back until you blend that bit of a line in. I do want little light fluffies, so I pick up more, and if I just work it in on the palette in that same area, it gets me enough gray on that brush that I don't have to get a ton. And I can tap the fresh paint here, and as I get a little less on my brush, I can come in and add a little bit of the fluffy off the edge. So this is how we're going to get our snow stippled on. So we will work through and we will do that on the whole roof. And then switch to our 1/4 inch to do down below. So we're going to start our needles. I'm going to use a 5/8 flat. So that's not quite, it's probably about a 14 or a 16. So I'm going to double load with plantation pine and black green. And we would, now I've drawn these on here, but I'm going to need them to be a bit longer. So we start at the end of our needle, or our branch. And it's absolutely fun and easy. And what I want you to see is that I'm going to take, I've got a lot of moisture in my brush right now. I'm just going to blot it on a paper towel. That'll help. My towel's getting crusty over here, so it's not blotting nicely. Okay, so you see how transparent those ones are. If your brush isn't wet, they won't be. So I start down here and I'm sliding, but do you see that I slide in the middle as well? You don't want to go like that. That seems to be the thing our brain says, one on one side, one on the other. It's like we're...
It's a different way, Wendy. We haven't done that before. Usually it's just with a liner.
Yeah, this works really, really nice and gives us nice, thick, chunky branches. So you will start from that end. You see by starting down there, my needles overlap each other. See now how you can see the difference where my brush had a little bit too much water in it. So I'll come back over this guy. So I'll work my way up. And rather than make you sit here and watch all that, now I'm going to dip the plantation pine part of my brush into celery, and I'll put a little more plantation pine on the black green. So it's always on the light. So and I'm just going to come through here and highlight a few. So I'm not doing a complete of everything. It's just a highlight of a few. So you come through and you're going to do that. You're going to highlight a couple of these needles. And you would be doing all of them. You've got them coming from over here. So I'm just going to show where I'm talking about. So you've, not under the camera, I'm not. Anyway, so we're going to go through, we're going to continue with these. I'm going to probably have another one cross over here because I don't want them to be too long. I want them to look like the Grinch's fingers. So we'll go through, we'll do that, and then we pick up white.
Oh, you have it here.
White?
Oh, that's...
You have it here.
Oh, and that's not white anyway, so
Okay.
let's go over here. Thank you, Melissa. All right, so now you see these branches. When I'm pointing over there to these branches I'm referring to in our photo, you see the white on them. So I come back and I'm just gently adding it. We don't need absolutely every little needle
I know, it's just amazing.
to have. Yeah, like see how pretty and how soft it is? You just go through, make sure you have white. See, as I go, it's blending in and it's becoming a green, right? And I don't want the minty green, I do want the white. So I come through, but the important thing is not one side, it's working our way all the way across so that we are having some needles, because the needles come out all the way around the branch. So that's going to give you more of that look. Now I'm going to bring another branch coming across that would cross over.
I know, I was thinking the
You
same
know?
thing.
And flatten your brush to the chisel as often as you can, because that's what brings it. If I was to press harder here, if I press too hard, do you see what I get? I want to flatten my brush to the chisel so that I'm going to get, I'm not pressing. And they're nice, easy. You'll enjoy doing these.
So this one we'll put in later?
Very nice.
So, and then all right, so what we're doing here is you just come back with
And
a
just put
couple,
some-
yeah.
Oh, just like
So they end up appearing like they're poking
Yeah.
out. You don't do too many. We're not looking to get a complete solid one, but
Yeah.
do you see how that gives the illusion? And if I reload, I just really pick up more of the white. It's just you don't want to start with just pure white.
Yeah.
And you can do this one with the with your 1/2 inch even if you want. It you're not necessarily looking for real long needles because they're buried in the snow is our
Right.
plan, right? So you see
Got it.
you're coming back like so, maybe one or two. Yeah,
Got it.
like this is
Easy pleasy.
yeah. So
Okay.
it's just a case of, you know, a couple that stick out of the snow.
Right.
So see the difference in that clump of snow compared to where it's
Yeah.
just solid now.
So it's the plantation pine.
Yeah, black, green,
and then white.
Yeah, because your brush would have been dirty from the last process. That's what I did, and then
Okay.
pick up white. So it's just giving me a little bit of a look of the needle sticking out.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and do that after. And the other thing I want to show you is our phantom leaves. So I'm going to pick up some black green and some plantation. And some people did them already and some haven't.
No, I haven't.
And you can use a liner
Oh,
if
that's
you like.
right. They ended up being dark.
But you want them to be very faint. So you add a lot of water and you blot your brush as well
Okay.
on a paper towel. And I would come in here and you see how I'll just kind of work my way back.
Okay.
And there's just, so what this does is this is going to give me the look that there's more needles in the background. So it looks like they go back further. There's a shadow, you know, behind. There's more in the background that are happening. I can come in anywhere here. So you would be doing this on your glass, and you can see them in your colored picture. You know, just tucked a few here and there. I even have a couple showing right in here, so that it gives you that look like, you know, that these branches are there. There's more in behind. So, and I'll have some coming from there, but it just kind of gives a little bit more drama looking to the piece,
Right.
and it stops it
Right.
from looking so flat, right? You can have more of those back here where in one section if you prefer. That way it'll end up, this is probably not even in the camera, but it's just that way if you do it heavier in one area, those ones appear to be a little closer to us.
Okay.
So that's our mission with these.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do our seeds. I'm gonna just zoom that in a bit. So I'm going to double load. So I just flipped my round brush over. I'm picking up black and I'm picking up neutral gray, and I can tell that I've got water in my brush there, so I'm just going to take that excess water out. Okay, back in here again. So black and neutral gray. And I'm going to take, and our seeds are simply shaped like a seed. Okay, so if I put one up over on the snow, you'll be able to see it a bit more. I want more neutral gray, not seeing them. So we'd come through, and you want your seeds to go different directions. So they're just like little fat teardrops. And some will overlap another. And we're going to be coming in here with little red, rusty colored ones, the heritage brick and all that. But, so we're going to have extra seeds in there. So once we get our seeds on, we're going to take our liner and we're going to have khaki tan and we're going to put a line on them. So you see that my brush is picking up the dirty paint as it goes through it, right? So we're not concerned. And I mean, you can put a little bit of a line on, say, another part to it as well, because you know how you'll see all these little lines on sunflower seeds. But as it's going through the wet paint, it picks up dirty, so it won't be so bright.
Right.
They'll
Blends
pick
in
up,
nice.
yeah, they'll pick up that nice dirty color.
Perfect.
And the odd one, you might end up with some right down the middle. It doesn't matter. They're just lines on the sunflower seeds. Nobody's actually going to go in there and split those babies. So we don't need to worry. But I'm looking at mine. I wouldn't have minded having a little bit more gray still than that. So pick up a bit more neutral than black. And so what I'll do is I'll go in with, which I'm going to put in a few more anyways. So I'm going to go in with more neutral and a little bit of black. And this, by going like putting some seeds in and then coming back with some more, it's a lot easier to put a seed on top of another
Yeah,
one.
it's layered.
Yeah, you know, you just tend to not,
It's not flat then.
yeah, you tend to not want to do that when you're first doing it, but you'll see that it does make a difference. And we just come through with these little lines. And it's funny because as soon as it gets the little line on it, then there it is, the seed, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we do. And then we're just going to take our round and dab in the little tiny colored seeds.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So we're going to put the little seeds in amongst, as long as we didn't leave our brush full of. So, and you're just going to dab them through. These are just little tiny seeds of.
What color is that one?
This one is the burnt orange.
Burnt orange.
We're going to use burnt orange, heritage brick, which is a deeper, darker color. So I'll dab some of them in. And they can be up on the snow or just in amongst them. And then I'm going to pick up camel.
Just like that.
So now they look like cute little seeds, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a quick dry.
It's not like the multicolored seeds that they're all
On each other.
Yeah.
Some hit each other, some don't.
okay.
So some will be kind of on top of each other, but others will be lonely in their same color. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to take our black-brown mix. And I'm going to thin it down. And we're going to do a wash over top of this. So like thin down is thin down. So I want you to watch up there.
I'm watching you thin down.
So I thin it down nice and inky. Always blot on a towel so that you don't have too much. And I'm going to just brush this wash over top. So see how it dulls it down? So they're not quite so bold. So that tones it right down so that they're not as bold. And then what we end up doing is once you've done that, you go through and add a few tiny little on top again. Not anywhere near as much. So what I'll do is I just go back in and I add a couple. And so what it does is it makes it appear that there's different layers. These guys are way back and then there's more on top again. Same thing with the camel. Just a couple little tiny ones. You're not doing too much because then it defeats the purpose of having the wash back there. So you have a couple of little brighter ones and that's that.
Okay.
So do you?
We're going to start by wet coating. I'm using my 1/4, pardon me, lunar blender, and that gives us the scratchy, right? That's why we want to use that. So I wet coat his belly. Wipe my brush. I'm going to pick up honey brown on the dirty brush, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to chisel. So we're chiseling in upwards into the wet white. So it's going to end up fading up into that white. I'll wipe my brush and I'm going to pick up neutral gray. So now I'm going to chisel neutral gray, and it just works its way back into the honey brown. And as my white dried on me before I got to it, I just pick up a little bit more white on the brush so that I'm able to chisel and blend the two together. We kind of did that a little bit on these if they dried on us. We did that same thing.
So that brush never went in the water.
No, no. So we chisel that in, and just to add a bit of shadow on the bottom of our bird, I'm just going to bring a little neutral gray back down to the very bottom as well. So we wanted to go from the golden, or honey brown, pardon me, into the neutral gray, into the white. And I think he could still have a little bit more white up here, just to soften that so it stops nicely. Then we're going to I'm going to take my little 1/8 to do my cheeks. Wipe my brush, and you can see in your photos, that it's darker at the back of the cheek. Okay, so I've put a wet coat on here. I wipe my brush, and I can see that this guy looks a little fuzzy, so he might be one I've been doing a lot of dry brushing with. So we want to get a feathery look to it. So if your brush isn't feathery enough, you do need a chisel. So I'm just going to work my way from the back. I'm not pressing hard. I'm not pressing hard at all. Okay, so work my way that way. I want it to stay whiter at the front, so we leave it like that.
That's
now,
just neutral gray.
yeah, and we are going to use our liner after and pull a few little tiny feathery marks out onto the edge and stuff like that, but because you'll never get them that fine with your lunar blender, but you still want to switch to the smaller one. So I would do all my cheeks as well with that. Okay, that's our mission. Should you choose to self-destruct?
Okay.
So I'm going to do it, and you guys can see it up there on the screen again if you want to watch. I'm going to do the guy up top. So that was, we take honey brown after I've done that wet coat. And remember, I'm not pressing hard. I'm short little jabby strokes so that you get a feathery look with it. Wipe my brush. I'm going to pick up a little of the neutral gray. And if I need more white, we bring that white back down. And again, that neutral gray at the bottom, just to give a little bit more of a shadow. Okay, so we're going to start. I've double loaded the brush, so you see how gray is on one side and black is on the other. So I'm going to take the lighter color always to the end. It's going to follow my chisel blend. And I'm not going to press too hard. I just want to go along. I could use a little more neutral gray. You can see it on the first one, but it's faded away by the time I get to the seconds. Okay. So we go there, and then I'm going to repeat. See how now it shapes the wing? and you're going to pick up a little tiny bit of white on the dirty side. So you're always, when you add light, you always go on the light side of the brush. So I'm adding the white to the neutral gray side, being that it's the lighter side. And I come back in, and I'm going to add just a little highlight to those feathery strokes. If I want them to pop up a bit more, I can brighten them a bit more. And I'm just going to drag a little. I don't want too much bright down there, but I'm going to just add a little bit more. So we would do that to all of these tail feathers and wing feathers, and then we'll go to this batch, which is done with the neutral gray and the black. So, all right. So
And we would do that the very same way.
So we're going to be doing these feathers now. So I'm going to double load my brush in neutral gray and black. And if you look at your photo, it's going to be a little darker up in here. So I'm just going to start and put these little markings in behind. Just put those in first, because you can see these feather marks come up to them. So again, it's neutral gray and black. It's just like what we did back here. Neutral gray and black. And I'll just bring these little feathers like so. And then remember, we added a bit of white as a highlight. So I'll come back and I'll add a little bit of white as a highlight. But this is, I'm going to get a bit more neutral gray to show in there. There.
It looks so easy. And then you go try it and it's nothing like that.
I go try it and I forget told me what you did.
I know.
Well, there's that too.
So now the one up top, do you see how he's not as pronounced? So I'm just going to make sure that he's in the camera. Referring to last video I did attempted. All you could see was my hand. So you see, it's again going to be the neutral gray and the black. And there's kind of two layers of that. We've got, you know, we keep coming back with that. So these are just more little tiny feathers that are up in there. So you're just seeing the markings of them. And then it's neutral gray and black, but you see that these ones will come backwards, just like and again, I pick up a little bit of warm white on the corner of the dirty brush, always flattening it to the chisel on my palette. So when I come back, it's nice and flat. And I'm basically highlighting the ends of those little petals. He's a flower, he's a flower. So of those little feathers, okay? So we're highlighting them, and that's his. So he's not as bold. So even if you want, see how I could go back in between them and see how it gives more of that look there. It's not a big deal whether I like them better to stand out a bit more, actually. So I'm going to put a bit more white. There.
Yeah.
That looks nice.
Yeah. In the little one.
And the little guy, he's very weird. I've got my brush flattened with whatever on him, and this is all he gets is a little bit. See how I just used the brush and just jabbed a few little feathers?
Yeah.
Because all you're seeing is the edges of those little feathers coming around like that.
Okay.
That's all there is to him.
Oh, okay.
All right, and then we're going to dry brush on their heads. So we're going to dry brush. This guy skipped out on the cheek somehow. I'm going to take neutral gray, and I've got my lunar blender, and I'm going to dry brush. So do you see how nice and soft? It gives me a highlight. on his head. But you see how I'm leaving the black all around? I'm going to dry brush on his beak, the top of his beak. So the bottom stays black, and I'm just going to put a little tiny bit in there. So the same thing, I'm going to make sure they're in the picture. So I can pick up a little of my gray sky with my neutral gray just to once this is done, just to come in and highlight it up a bit more. See the difference that but if I went to just the brighter, it'll stand out like ah. And I will put a little on his beak too.
So that one's gray sky, okay.
But it's on the dirty brush of neutral gray, so it's not going to be pure, that makes a huge difference. So I would be starting on this guy with, make sure your brush is dried off. And remember how I said I'm not going to, I leave the dark around the outer edge on the top of the beak. And then I pick up a little of that on the dirty brush and I work it in with that neutral gray. So now it'll be a little bit brighter. See how it's just a little softer? And that softens it up. Now, I want to show you quickly because I know you ladies have plans. Okay, so all of the eyes are going to be the same. So you see how part of my eye is up on the black and parts in the white. So I would, and this guy didn't get his cheek done yet. So I would take my 10-0 liner with neutral gray and nice and fine I outline on top of the eye. I don't bother on the bottom because the black stands out, right? So, and if I made my line too thick, so say I didn't want it that thick, I can take black, which is still wet on my eye, but I can take black. Do you see how by pushing that black back, I made my line skinnier? A lot of times when you outline an eye, you never get it as fine as you want. So if you just push that black back, you can push it back to the point of having what you'd like. So I can take some gray sky, and I'm going to give this guy a little highlight, comma, to the back of his eye. Keep it up top and to the back. If you put it in the middle, it changes the whole eye. So keep it to the back and the top. You see on this picture here too. So I've kept them, just, you don't want to bring it down to the middle of the eye. And the same thing with that. If I made that too thick or too big, I just push a little bit of black into it. Rather than taking the whole thing off, doing it again. And it's very easy to repair it by pushing a little bit of black back up into that eye. All right, so that's how we do our eyes. The other thing I want to show you is with your liner, and I can take, and I can pull.
Well, I was wondering about that, how you were doing those little lines, what makes
Yeah.
it look like feathers.
Just with your liner. Yeah, because remember we talked about when we're doing this with our lunar blender and we're scratching our scratchy look, you can never get nice and fine off the edge like you want. So you just come through like that. And then the same thing with the black. You can use the, if you don't have it scratchy like this, I can take my liner. Just don't do it even. You don't want it to look like little teeth or anything, or
Right.
fingers.
Right.
So you would just do
Beautiful.
just a little. Is he in the camera? No, he's not. Just like that. Okay? So that works. And then this little fellow, you can see in your picture that they come. See the angle that I pull them on? So that makes, if I got him in the camera, I do. So that brings his body turned. So you can see the way his head's turned, right? Those little feathers are coming that way. So that just really helps to give you direction of it. And if your little beak isn't proper on top of your seed, you know, say it was the seed's too big, you can just bring a little more black in there and put that seed in his mouth instead of on his mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes a difference. All right, so, and then even with legs, we can just, you know, like this guy here, let me look at what I got on him. We talked about that somebody had theirs coming down wider in white there. Was so you just go back over it with the black. I've got too much water in my brush there. Thank you, Melissa. This guy here, so he's got his leg coming down into the snow there, and he has little claws that you can see over here in the snow. And then he's got a little bit. And I always go back with gray or, you know, dirty with gray sky or any of that, and just kind of streak back on top so that it's these are tiny and they don't have much room for highlight, but if they're left pure black, they jump out, right?
Yeah.
And so afterwards, if you feel like, oh, I want to put a, I'm going to give them a little curve to that. But if you feel like, oh, I want to put a little bit of snow up against those a bit, you can take your deer foot, and I would tap it off so there's not very much, and then it's just a bit of soft furry against there.
Right.
See, you can see how he looks like he's more in the snow in our picture there. So you can top that off too. This poor little cheekless wonder. And see, even for where I dry brushed, if I come back with my black and clean up.
That's the cleaning up part, eh? At the end.
Yeah, it changes it.
Really
Like you
changes
look
Yeah,
at it and you
clean
think,
up.
okay, that I dry brushed too big on that beak, and now that's all I see when I look at it. So it's really just a case of coming back with the black. And a lot of times I'll come there and I smudge with my finger. So it just blurs that. It's not a perfect repair type thing. And then before anything, you would go back and you would make sure that you're going to erase any of your white graphite lines that may still be there on a wing or whatever. You don't notice them. You'll notice when you've, well, this on the frosted window, you don't need to varnish. If you said, well, I might want to put it outside, I might give it a spray with a matte varnish or something. But basically, most people are keeping it inside. Or, like I know Patty's going to put hers on under a covered porch type thing. So we're going to double load our 0 round with black, brown, and khaki tan. And then I'm just going to start at the bottom of the rope and just work my way up in little twists. So you just press and lift, press and lift as you work your way up. And this will give, I need to reload. So it's press and lift. All the way up, and that gives that little braided twist wire that we've got coming all the way up. And then the little link that comes in part way, you can just do a swipe on that to highlight that. I'm going to take my 1/2 inch, I'm going to pick up gel, canvas stain antiquing medium or canvas gel or blending gel, and I'm going to side load with a little bit of neutral gray. So this gel is going to help keep my brush, the paint, movable. So I can just kind of shade along here and smudge. So this is just going to give us a bit of a shadow behind where we've got that second layer of where the paint or the snow has built up. I guess it would help if I was to put that camera over top of it. And then the same thing along here. just smudge to give us that little front lip on the front of the birdhouse. And just, the gel lets you smudge it with your finger. I'll put a little bit of a dirty shadowy part underneath the bird and smudge. You can even shade on your bird along the bottoms with them afterwards. And I'll do it in the snow down at the bottom. I'll put that shadow in behind here and smudge it. A little bit in there, smudge it up, and I'm going to come down here and put a little, that's going to show a lip along that as well. We'll put some in behind. We could even put a little of the black brown in behind there if we want. That would give it a nice bit of shade on that bit of snow that's behind the bird. That helps there too. But you see how bright this chunk of snow looks. So we'll put a little bit there as well. Whenever you're using a gel like this, you have to make sure that you give your piece extra time drying before you go varnish or anything, because it can move it along. Alrighty.